Hello guys, I want to talk about asymmetric and symmetric relationships with people. So we're gonna talk about a bunch of things. We're gonna also talk partially about toxic metaframing. So asymmetric and symmetric relationships, what are they? A symmetric relationship is basically that, for example, from the heart chakra, you love someone else on the heart chakra. So you connect both on the heart chakra level. That's a healthy asymmetric relationship. Or for example, you find someone sexually attractive from the sacral chakra, so you connect with them on that level and they connect with you also on that level. That's a symmetric relationship. Asymmetric relationship is basically a codependency relationship often. So for example, if you, let's say you love someone from the heart, but the other person doesn't really love you from the heart, but they use you in a narcissistic way, then for example they have a solar plexus blockage and they like to control things and manage things, and they don't care about how you feel, you will still stay with them. Sometimes this also happens in families. So you love them because you think they should be loving you back, but they're using narcissistic tools to pretend to give you an idea of love, but it's not really love. And but they're manipulating with you, push pull, gaslighting, and so forth. So basically they learned how to fake love in a way, but maybe you've been raised in a family where you thought that this type of dynamic is love. So that's an asymmetric relationship. Or for example, which one asymmetric relationship which happens a lot is if the woman has a very weak root chakra and feels like extremely insecure financially, and but in a strong way, and the guy has a firm root chakra, so she feels attracted to him but dependent on him as well, and then he might use his narcissistic, might be also the other way around, doesn't also always have to be the men, but then he could use his solar plexus control in order to narcissistically manipulate the other person again. So those are asymmetric relationships, and there's tons of relationship in the world which are asymmetric. When I was doing the massage sessions with a lot of people, I noticed like when they had a partner and they would talk to me about their problems, oftentimes it would be an asymmetric relationship. But because they're so afraid to be alone, to be on their own, to be self-sufficient, I could say that they usually stick with the other person. And even though that is detrimental to their energy field. And then we come to toxic metaframing. Toxic metaframing, there's direct, indirect, verbal, and non-verbal toxic metaframing. And toxic metaframing is basically that you put the other person down because you yourself are unhappy and you don't see that you are the cause of it. So you're, for example, unhappy, you don't have joy, you don't have sexuality, and you're making your partner responsible for that unhappiness that you have inside of you. And then you start what I call toxic metaframing. Like for example, you never amount to anything. Everything you do is stupid. You're like this person, and there's many different ways. For example, one way which is a direct, which is kind of like a hidden but hard to spot toxic metaframe sometimes, is when people constantly interrupt you. It's basically a way to say, I don't care what you feel, I don't care what you think, it's all about me. And so you can't even finish a point. They immediately um, interrupt you into their own point of view. So that means that they're actually using you to put you down, but in a very subtle way. They're like saying, I'm more important than you are. And this type of toxic metaframe can be very strong to the point where like, you don't deserve to live, I deserve to live. But it can be also super subtle, like with these, or for example, they 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 don't pay you any attention, or um uh they, what do you call it, like they ghost you and never write you back, or take extremely long times to write you back, and so forth. Those can also be toxic metaframes. And by understanding that, you can, by understanding asymmetric and symmetric relationships, you can be very, very picky and very careful about choosing who you are with, and making sure that it's not a codependency that's not actually based on toxic blockages, and you're actually not growing, because you could be 20, 30, 40 years or your whole life in a relationship like that, and you will never find out if you don't raise your consciousness. So this is one. I mean, I have mastery in many of these things, and this is definitely also one of my specialties, is understanding relationships and healing based on chakra, on this chakra system and the nadis, which are the energy cores in the system, and seeing how it also interrelates with others. And what I do is an exercise which I call chakra breathing, where both sit together and do a special type of breathing. I'm going to explain how chakra breathing works now. Chakra breathing works like this. You can sit spine to spine, like touching each other, and then one person, as they breathe in, they pull the energy from the root chakra into your chakra, and as you breathe out, you give it back. And the other person does the same thing. They breathe in from the root chakra to their root chakra, and as you breathe out, they give it back. And you do that for a couple of minutes for every 7 major chakras, and thereby you realign the partnership through a new type of energetic system. You basically are releasing blockages between two people, unless the blockage is astrologically given, for example, that two people just don't fit astrologically. And that's the most important thing in good and bad relationships, is to figure out whether the 3 major chakra systems in a relationship, which is the sacral chakra, heart chakra, and third eye chakra, whether they connect well with the other person. And the sacral chakra is the sexual attraction, heart chakra is the heart, love attraction, and third eye is the spiritual attraction. And those are the 3 major relationship configurations. And if you have if all 3 of them activated, then you are basically in a very, very healthy relationship with the other person. And you also want to check the soul plan. Like, if the soul plan is the same between 2 people, or supporting each other between 2 people, then they stick together. When the soul plan is different, they separate eventually. So it's good to know your soul plan in order to pick the right partner. Because for me, for me, it's helping other people with their soul plans, and eventually creating a retreat space in some exotic location. And if a woman does support that soul plan, I know she's the right person for me. So I don't base it on interests or like getting along with someone, but it's based on the chakra connections on one side. So it's based on the chakra connections, and it's based on the soul plan, whether the soul plan is the same or similar or supporting. So when I have the absolute lottery ticket would be to have a connection on all 3 of the chakras, and at the same time have the soul plan. And most people pick other people, whether friends or whatever else, or relationships, without considering these 2 things, because nobody ever talks about it. And then they pick the wrong partner, they stick with it for 10 or 20 or 30 years, and they become unhappier until they eventually separate, because they never picked the right partner from the beginning. And the soul plan and the chakra connections are much more important than any other way of meeting. And the thing is, you have to meet a lot of people, and you have to be fine-tuned to these energies to recognize it. Otherwise, you meet like 10 people, 20 people in your life, and you pick one of those 20 people, but they never were the perfect match from the start. So that's a good way to see relationship from the chakra perspective, from the soul plan perspective, and whether it's a symmetric or asymmetric relationship between the chakras. And each chakra has their own emotions, right? So the root chakra is safety, security, and so forth, and financial. Sacral chakra is joy and sexuality. Solar plexus is control, acceptance, and willpower and manifestation. Heart chakra is love, conditional, unconditional. Throat chakra is communication and expression. Third eye is clairvoyance and intuition. And crown chakra is the impersonal, the impersonal godly self, the where the person vanishes.